see. On off. Let's try out. Yes,
hey,
we have one on off.
We did it.
Yes.
How's it going, Ruben?
Hello, Dan. So this was a nice moment, huh? To start.
It's good to have a 20-minute warm-up. Man.
Yes, that's it. I was doing all my resources to, I don't know, be an entertainer, but it's not my thing. So welcome.
I didn't hear so many jokes. I don't know.
No, because it's not my thing. It's not my skill. So welcome.
Thanks, Dan. I'm glad I could make it.
In the end, you were our first choice. You know, this is fate.
Yes.
Well,
I have to show you what's behind me here. I don't know if you see my
Sam. So people, that's Sam, the one that was not appearing.
They're all there. We're all here. I'm just representing.
We had so much things to talk with Sam, that is living in the far away north countries. Of course,
I lived in Norway actually for a few years. So if you want to talk about Scandinavia,
no. Okay. No, let's talk about on-off and your work and what you've been doing. So again, thank you now in behalf of Sam and on-off to be here. Let's start a bit with the fact that you are a collective. So somehow is good also when you go live, because if one it's not allowed to enter, there's somebody else in other parts of Europe to jump in.
Yeah, I feel like this way we entered is kind of like a good diagram of how collective works.
Yes.
People get thrown under the bus. It's like, oh wait,
it's like, okay,
done.
It's me. I go. Yes, that's perfect. Yeah, perfect to start. So, yeah, just to talk a bit. Like, there's a lot of collectives. As we are friends. We work together, but somehow we all have this. We share the same, a lot of the same values. But for me, it looks like that collectives have their own ways of working. Like. As a team. So how do you work? I know that on-off now it's somewhere between Berlin, London, and Gothenburg. Mm. So how do you work when you have people like in these different geographies? Mm. How it's normally your teamwork? How do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, reflecting on it, I would say basically we were all in Berlin at least at one point, or we were more concentrated in Berlin, and also having a place to meet and having a space to kind of have conversations. We would have these Monday meetings, which, when you're in collective, you have to have a lot of meetings. That would really help with us creating a bond and creating ways of working together and common ground and ways of communicating. And then more in the last few years, people we were not always all in Berlin, but some people moved to different cities. Like Gothenburg's a new place, and we have to be more professional, I guess, or better at communicating. I don't know if we are, but we are definitely. We have the trust and the history to be able to trust each other to some degree and to communicate, to delegate work and to take on different projects. So obviously we work in smaller parts. Like, we're not all working together on all the projects. One person usually takes on a project and brings in other people, or two people bring or find a project, or it kind of is a constellation of moving parts. So the more people are on a project, I think it's always better. The more the merrier, I would say. But it's very difficult with people's lives these days also. Like, everybody has their side jobs and their families and their teaching and whatnot to get everybody into the same project.
So mostly you kind of you share the same, somehow you share the same ideas, you share the same utopias, and you use on off as a way to express that. But then it's kind of more more in with the one that is on the place of the project and something like this. And of course you jump in when someone it's needed, but it's more on this. So it should be like this. What I'm trying to understand, like for instance, here for us, we in warehouse we have this core team that share a working space like every day. So for us, for instance, now this situation of the quarantine and stuff, it's actually affecting us quite a lot, because it's I mean, normally we work together, and then we come up with more people from our network that normally actually it's also like a European network that now we cannot have it because there's no flights and stuff. So for us it's more difficult, but for you it's more or less the same in a way, like team wise it's not you are used to it somehow, to be distance, no?
Yeah, I guess it hasn't drastically changed our way of working because of the whole distance thing and because of our whole home office scenario, maybe anyway. But I don't know. Like I would say, it's not better. You know, it's always better to be physically.
Yeah, of course. Yes. And what about? I mean, regarding your projects. I mean, your ongoing projects, your proposals that you were writing. I mean, of course, that some things are changing now. Like for us, there were projects that we were doing a proposal or in the starting point with the municipality or something like this, and we had to stop a bit and to understand. Okay, should we stop it? Should we cancel it? Should we delay? Should we change our tools? Like, how are you going to do this? Did it happen to you? Like, do you have any of these changes? Let's say, like, if you felt something of this, or
sure. I mean, I said, like, because we are all not currently in the same space, I can only tell, and also for what I know that is happening in the collective.
Okay.
But definitely, I would say I felt changes because, you know, in on-off we have people that are more on and people that are more off. I was also on for a few years full-time working on on-off. And then for the last 2 years I was working in an office, and on-off was my side hustle. So like something I did on the weekends or take time off work. And then basically in February or around Christmas, I decided to quit my job to go back full-time onto on-off freelancing basically. And it was very bad timing in terms of getting, I mean, I have 2 projects that I managed to participate on in February and that I managed to finish or execute to some degree. And then everything that I had in the shoot is basically postponed or canceled. So it's definitely a big question for me. Like, and also I have a 2-year-old, so you know it's difficult to plan around.
It's that. Also, of course.
It's like a big question. Like I would say, I feel quite affected by this current crisis. You know.
Well, let's for us. It's also. I mean, I think we are all affected, but also these talks and this moment also kind of pushes to also think about, okay, what about then? What about after? So for now we are in this kind of on hold situation, but for instance, like watching cities, watching public space, there's a lot of different ways that people are using now. It's everything. It's somehow being somehow help to promote of space, like the social distance that for the good or for the bad, we have to do it now. Do you see that happen? Like, did some of my tools actually I cannot use them now because I cannot gather people and
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like the best thing right now, the editing of the book, Co-Machine's book, which we are publishing this year, and actually thinking about these ways of working in public space with co-machines and infrastructures and interventions, which are very personal, like close, you know, physically close, and also the point is to have conversations and to discuss politics and to step out of our internet bubbles and, you know, our sort of set ways which we interact with online, and which are now more extreme with the physical distancing, I think. So it's really a big question. What is the world that we're going to get, or how do we operate in the world that we're going to get on the other side of this, or even during this pandemic, you know? Because apparently it seems like this will be going on for months and years. So that's a good question. I mean, my approach has been to take a break and to reflect, basically. Better to stop, you know?
Yeah.
That's my.
I mean, you talk about the on-off co-machines, like a project that you've been developing and still doing, because you are now saying that there's this book coming. I mean, we know a bit about it, and one of the very interesting for me, one of the very interesting parts of this on-off, like the co-machines, is actually that somehow they touch somehow this autonomy and appropriation of citizens about their public spaces. So in a way, I understand what you're saying. Like, okay, my tools now I cannot do them, but still, in another way, like co-machines are example that there's still some things that you can actually continue to promote on public space that somehow are in between these two situations, so that somehow people can be there and can use a project like you're saying, that they can use it as a platform to talk about politicians and streets decisions and stuff, but still trying to answer to the social distance. I would say that, as you're saying, now it's time to think about, of course, but I would say that it's also a time to rethink about it, because for sure that, I mean, we cannot postpone all the interventions in the city, all the cultural
or the scarier thing for me to think about is also in the regulation side of things, when you're mentioning like fighting for specific things in public space and what these co-machines actually mean. Like the co-machine, I don't know if people that are listening to this are familiar with it, but they're the physical.
They have to go and check it.
They should check it out. It's the physical. They're not everything, right? The co-machine is a physical object installation in public space, but behind it lies all the arguments and all the politics and all the points that the people that make it wanna put out there. It's the projectile into public space. In this fight, we can still keep fighting the physical object, maybe because there's less people interacting in public space. We can still claim the the fight or the space and fight the regulations like not privatizing, but security and like monitoring of people, like all these things, all these laws that are going to be pushed and passed over the coming months.
Yeah,
to monitor people for the safety of the greater good and society that then you can undo afterwards. And it's also about regulating public space and regulating public life. So, which then kills this movement, which is a more bottom-up or self-organized thing that is working outside of regulations that are set by the city.
Definitely. So, like for us, one of our scariest thoughts is actually that, especially in Portugal, it's a recent thing that actually people start to understand. They have an active voice on their street, on their public park, and so on. And somehow we feel that this situation now, and the issue of the social distance, and you cannot go outside, or if you go, you have to not touch, not go anywhere. There cannot be events on the streets. So all of these could actually give 10 steps back to what's been doing in these last years. So for us, as you were saying, like, it's very scary to think that this could be an excuse for not only stop a growing movement, but also to this new control and privatizing even public space. For us, it's very, very scary, and that's also why we really want to talk about it, and we really want to reflect on it with you and with other people. It's actually let's not forget that this is a problem for sure. Things that we are also interesting about talking with you guys that are in different places as well. It's this relation now with your home, with your house. I mean, it was very evident in the first talk that we have with Manu from Zulwark. They had this, I don't know if you know, but they have this project. It's called the Declaration of Urban Rights. And somewhere in the middle of the conversation, we start to talk about this, almost like the new Declaration of Home Rights, because I mean, now that people have to stay at home, you have a lot of differences. You have a lot of rights that actually are not being so well taken care of. I mean, for instance, if you go for a difference from a southern country like Portugal, from Berlin or even from Sweden, housing wise, it's totally different. Like for us, house, because we live so much on the outside space, house it start to become this place where you just go to eat, take a shower, and sleep. You focus a lot on the outside, so you have houses without balconies, with no good windows, with like no good insulation, stuff like this.
But people are losing their minds at the moment.
and now this is like these things start to come up. What is your feeling, like more of course regarding your context and Berlin? Do you feel that this is also an issue? Do you see from your professional also point of view that somehow we forget about stop building homes and we start just to build houses?
You mean like you're building boxes for people to sleep in?
Yeah, yeah. And we don't care about it somehow. Just now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that people stuck at home with children, and it's definitely something that I guess is good for architects on some level, that people are reflecting so much on their homes and how they live. But for me, it's maybe more interesting. I mean, yeah, I experienced that. I have the home office. I also have a child, I have a 2-year-old. I have to go outside every day. And that is something. We have a balcony. We're lucky, actually. We have a balcony in Berlin, which is not super common. But I think the more interesting thing for me is, again, like in public space, like playgrounds, for example. Like, for me, it was weird that playgrounds were one of the first things to close. I feel like playgrounds were really central focus points. I don't know. I don't want to take away. We can talk about homes again and housing afterwards. But like,
no. Just go for it. Of course, this it's a free talk.
That it's like this infrastructure that exists in public space, which is very free and very creative and like a very nice space that in Berlin maybe is more a more high quality space. I don't know. I can't compare. I don't know what cities I'm comparing to, but Berlin has nice playgrounds basically, and those were closed very early on, at the same time as the schools and kindergartens, and then parents started using every part of the street and a park and every tree everywhere as a playground, or as a, there were basically these little nomadic playgrounds moving around. Like, obviously it was good that people weren't as close to each other, were trying to keep a distance, but it was still, illegal playgrounds popping up everywhere. So like, you go to a park and there's like a corner that all of a sudden there's 20 kids there now, or it's like a playground. It's just not cordoned off with red and white tape. So it's interesting, the legality again, like what is allowed and how do people perceive it. And like, you feel really bad if you jump over this red and white tape, but if you go and make a new one that is exactly the same in terms of the virus and the rules, then it's totally fine. I don't know.
Yeah.
This I found really interesting. And I guess it has to do with your extension of your home. Like, what are your amenities? What are your qualities of your home? It is the city. Like, we use public space and streets and restaurants and park, playgrounds, everything as extensions of our home that we are then cut off from at this point. And then all of a sudden we need to have all those things in our house, right? Like, you need a little bit of a playground, you need a little bit of a park, you need a little bit of a office, you need a little bit of everything in your house all of a sudden, which is impossible.
Yeah, I think it's like the public space appropriation with the tape. It's an image that is popping up quite often nowadays, that people they claim a little bit of outside space, somehow something in between their private space and their public space. And I think it's also very interesting in when you think about some of these movements of like co-living and these kind of let's say new movements that in some cities are starting. Actually, they start mostly because of the real estate pressure and super high levels. I mean, Lisbon and Berlin are victims of that. But nowadays, they also start to make some sense because this kind of semi-private public spaces is what people are actually claiming somehow. When you put your tape on the ground, it's okay, this is my corner. While I'm here, don't come, but if I go, you can use it. So somehow it's very interesting from the city point of view, and also, as you were saying, like I mean, we think that somehow it's also interesting that people are forced to create their public space. And we were asking this on the other talk to Manu as well, that that it's interesting that somehow people are not allowed to go to public space nowadays, but you are way more aware of it. You now know a lot of your housing surroundings. You start to say more hello to your neighbors. You check more stuff. Manu was from Zuluark. Was saying that he start to count the trees on his street. Now he knows how many trees. So somehow you are not allowed to use it, but you are more aware of it, and you are more aware of your needs when you go outside. So you build your own public kids park for your kid. Yeah. So this also connected with the fact that there's a lot of self-promoted citizens movement now to help each other, to like this kind of sense of community. I'm sure that in Berlin it's happening the same. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you feel that this is a powerful thing that actually could be used in the sense of like city co-building and city co-living, or do you feel that it's something like it's born from this moment, but then will somehow, I don't know.
I mean I don't know if this is completely changing everything. I think the culture and the community that exists in different parts of the city is now rallying together to support, vulnerable members of the community or in the neighborhood, which is great. And I think probably a crisis like this will definitely bring some solidarity and bring good issues to the forefront, as well as potentially causing some, political headaches in like the greater scheme of things. But it's maybe on the bottom up scheme, it's definitely good for the community. People organizing themselves or creating these bonds, and also noticing these new parts of it and talking to their neighbors in different ways. At least, I think that's definitely a good thing. And I think that maybe I'm an optimist, but I think it will be something that we take out of the crisis. That's something that will be something you can build on. Like something that there's potential that is created out of it. But I don't know. I wouldn't say it's like a complete game changer. It's like building an existing culture that exists in cities already, or in certain neighborhoods. I would say, I don't know, not everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it was already there. It's just probably more visible now somehow.
I mean, I have a friend who moved back. He's Irish. He lives in Berlin. He moved back there, and he's started this trend of cleaning like a kilometer of highway, or like I wouldn't call it highway. It's like a 2-lane major road. But he's living with his mom, so he goes and he cleans, a kilometer of it every day and Instagrams it. He's like, this is what I collected today, and you should do the same. And then like other friends on Instagram are in Poland and in other countries are then starting to do the same thing, and like kind of like showing off, like, this is my loot. I collected this much garbage. Yes. That kind of movement is cool to see. I mean, people caring more about their environment and more about their local surroundings. Especially maybe in more rural areas, but also in the urban context.
Yeah, I think I would say that you now talk about this local intervention, and I would say that that something that is coming from this situation is actually especially on the cities, this sense of local, like somehow that you are more connected. Because it's also because you are physically unable to go far away. You are more connected to your proximity people, spaces, I don't know, commercial places. But just jumping to the opposite, and I think to start to finishing this, because otherwise Instagram will cut us out. I mean, we are somehow part of this European. I mean, this European space, no boundaries, no limits. And I know that you, as we work a lot outside of our cities in our countries, so we know that's not possible now. But somehow we also feel that this situation it's creating problems for. I mean, for Europe political movements, borders in countries, more controls, affecting some of the things that professionally we use a lot, like cheap flights, moving around, jumping like from project to project. So, do you think that this is this part of this complexity of the way we work? We also have to rethink it a little bit and probably go more local as well, like we were just discussing now.
Yeah, I mean, like it's kind of scary what's happening to airlines, right? And like all these means that we're so used to. I mean, it's also good for the environment. Like I think that there can be good things that come out of it, but I guess on the larger scheme of things, we have lived in an era of a lot of mixing of ideas and traveling, and there's a scary prospect that that countries want to be more nationalistic. This is something that's scary, that's been happening for a while already, and I think this kind of like crisis where people can point fingers at outsiders bringing in a disease or spreading things around by traveling is like a scary prospect for politics and for cultural, especially the European project of no borders. Like the first thing that happened is all the borders were shut, right?
Yes.
But I think that going forward, obviously for us as on-off, we are a collective of 8+ members. None of us are from Berlin, right? So this is what makes our
as the rest of Berlin, it's almost the same.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know. Like for us, we want to engage with the Berlin context because we live here for many years, and we want to be local, and we have some projects in the local, but at the same time, we also have a lot of projects all over Europe or connected to our own countries. Like we're from Portugal and the UK, and I'm Croatian and Canadian, and we have an Australian member, and we have people all over the place. And I don't know. For us, local is also a big.
It's also not local, yes.
Yeah. But I do think that obviously it's an important aspect, an important thing to fight and to act in the local space, and because that's where you know your politics, that's where you know your community. Like you can only, when you work on these kind of bottom-up projects or on a more political level, you need to be more embedded in the context. You can't just show up and build some cool, sexy thing and then leave, because then it's kind of pointless.
Yes, for sure it will not work. Yeah. Well, I'm finishing my beer, and I think that we are almost running out of time.
I left my wine over there, and I'm not wearing pants, so I've been embarrassed to get up and go get my wine. Wait, I'll get my wine. Cheers.
Let's just do a. Well, I would like to thank you as well.
Cheers.
I would like to thank as well. Cheers, Dan. Thank you for jumping in. And I would like as well to thank On-Off, you, Sam, and all the other guys that were helping us to reflect on this and preparing. It was a bummer that these technical problems keep us from talking with Sam as well.
If I can say one thing about the technical problem, like we ran a project called the Conference Call, which we talked to a few years ago. And this technical aspect was always, or like at least in the first 10 calls, like something where it was a new problem every time.
Yes.
Like the sound or the internet or the light or wrong email or wrong platform or wrong phone or whatever. So it's something that I have a lot of sympathy for.
Yes. Well, it's what it is. And
I want to say, me and On-Off definitely support this project. Dialogue is super important. It's also important to have support structures in the community, and also between architecture collectives and studios that are working in similar fields and are similar, like aligned politically. So it's great to talk to you, and yeah, we'll listen to the other conversations. You know, we're curious.
Yes.
See what
We as well. Thank you, thank you, Dan, and thank you everybody for waiting to start this and all of this confusion around the Instagram live or whatever. So thank you all, and thank you, Dan. Thank you, Anof. We'll be here next Thursday.